You don't have a spending problem. That's what the bank statements suggest. That's what people around you probably say. But if overspending were actually the issue, you would have stopped by now. You tried. You watched the numbers. You told yourself next month would be different, and next month came, and the money still disappeared. That's the part people don't question, because they assume the problem is them. So something else is happening, not something complicated, not something buried in your childhood or tied to your personality, something structural, something running quietly in the background every single month, doing the same thing, producing the same result, while you sit there wondering what went wrong. That's what this is about, not tips, not a budget template, not 5 steps to financial freedom. Just a clear explanation of why the money keeps leaving and what that pattern actually looks like when you see it from the outside. Let's start with what most people experience. The month begins with some money in the account. Not a lot, maybe, but enough. There's a small sense of relief. A feeling that this time things will be managed better. A quiet confidence that the month ahead is under control. Then something small happens. A bill arrives earlier than expected. A friend's birthday appears on the calendar. The car needs something. The price of something you buy every week went up again. None of these things are dramatic. None of them feel like a financial crisis. They're just life, just the normal movement of a normal month. But by week 3, the account looks different. By week 4, there's a specific kind of anxiety. A checking and rechecking. A mental math that never quite adds up. A vague feeling that you must have missed something, must have forgotten something, must have done something wrong. And then the month resets, and the cycle begins again. If that pattern feels familiar, stay with this. Because most people, when they look at this situation, arrive at the same conclusion. They think the problem is that they don't earn enough. If the income were just a little higher, the gap would close, the stress would ease, the disappearing money would stop disappearing. That belief feels logical. It makes sense on the surface. More money in should mean more money remaining. The math appears to support it. But here's what actually happens when income goes up. More money doesn't fix this. It scales it. Expenses go up too. Not all at once, not obviously, but gradually, steadily, almost invisibly. The lifestyle adjusts to match the new income. The purchases get slightly larger. The treats become slightly more frequent. The subscriptions add up. The standards shift. What felt like a luxury 12 months ago now feels like a basic requirement. And the same feeling returns. The same tightness at the end of the month. The same sense that the money vanished without explanation. This is not a character flaw. This is a pattern. And it has a name. It's called lifestyle expansion. And it operates without permission. Nobody decides to do this consciously. Nobody sits down and thinks, I'm going to slowly increase every area of spending until my expenses consume my income. It happens automatically. It happens because the baseline shifts when the money shifts. The brain recalibrates. What felt like enough last year no longer registers as enough. The comparison point moves, the comfort level adjusts upward, and the spending follows. So the income went up, but the gap stayed the same, different numbers, same result, and the money still disappears every month. Now, here's where the mistake lives. Most people respond to this pattern by trying to control individual purchases. They audit the subscriptions. They cut the coffee. They decide to cook at home more. They make a list of what to stop spending on. They negotiate with themselves about what's necessary and what's not. And sometimes this works for a week or two, maybe even a month. But the underlying system doesn't change. The order of operations doesn't change. And that's the thing that matters most. Because the system isn't broken, it's doing exactly what it was set up to do. Here's what the order looks like for most people. Money arrives, expenses are paid. Whatever remains at the end of the month is what gets saved or invested or held on to. The leftover is what you keep for yourself in any meaningful financial sense. And the problem with that sequence is simple. The leftover is always the first thing to disappear, because life fills available space. Spending fills available income. If money is sitting in an account, waiting to be allocated later, it will be allocated. Something will claim it. Something always does. The order is the problem, not the amount, not the discipline, not the willpower, the order. And this connects to something that very few people talk about directly. The idea that managing money is primarily about behavior, about restraint, about making better choices in the moment. That if you just had stronger willpower, the money would stay. But willpower is not a financial strategy. Willpower depletes. Willpower fails on a Tuesday evening when something unexpected happens and the path of least resistance is to spend. Willpower cannot compete with a system that runs automatically in the opposite direction. What competes with a system is another system. And that brings us to the one shift that actually changes this pattern. Keep money first. Spend what's left. That's it. Not a 5-step plan, not a tracking spreadsheet, not a complicated allocation system with 17 categories. One reversal of the sequence. When money arrives, the first thing that moves is not toward an expense. The first thing that moves is away from spending entirely, into a separate place, an account that isn't immediately visible, an amount that is decided in advance, not calculated from what happens to remain. And then life runs on what's left. This sounds obvious. It probably sounds like something you've heard before. But there's a difference between understanding this as a concept and actually running your life with this as the operating sequence. Most people understand it. Very few actually run it as the primary structure of how they handle money. Because the moment you try to implement it, something interesting happens. The life that was running on the full income starts pressing against the reduced amount. The first month feels tight, not because the money isn't there, but because the baseline was built around spending everything, and now the baseline has to adjust. That adjustment is uncomfortable. That discomfort is not a sign that the shift isn't working. It is the shift working. But there's a deeper layer here. And this is the part that most conversations about money never reach. The disappearing money isn't just a spending issue. It's a visibility issue. When money exists in an account that's used for everything, it becomes impossible to see clearly. The rent and the coffee and the grocery run and the online purchase and the unexpected car repair all exist in the same pool. Everything feels equally valid. Everything feels like it belongs there. There's no boundary, no category, no way to see what's actually happening without running an audit. And most people don't run audits. Not regularly. Not with the kind of attention that would actually reveal the pattern. So, the money moves in. The money moves out. And the mechanism stays invisible. What happens when money is separated from the moment it arrives is that visibility becomes automatic. You can see what's available for spending. You can see what isn't. There's no calculation required. The structure does the seeing for you. This is not about creating restrictions. This is about creating clarity. And clarity changes behavior without requiring willpower. When you can see exactly what's available, you don't need to discipline yourself into making different choices. The choices become obvious. The parameters are visible. The game has different rules. Now, here's something that rarely gets said directly. The system that most people are running, the one where money arrives and expenses consume it and the remainder disappears, that system isn't an accident. It's the default. It's what happens when no alternative structure is installed. And the default is not designed to leave money behind. The default is designed to route money outward, into expenses, into purchases, into the economy, into everyone else's account except yours. Every business that charges you a subscription, every platform that makes purchasing frictionless, every store layout designed to extend your time inside it, every system you interact with financially is optimized to move money away from you as smoothly as possible. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how these systems are built. They are built to capture available income. And if you don't have a counterstructure, that's exactly what happens. The money gets captured, month after month, with perfect reliability. So the question is not why the money disappears. The question is why it would stay when nothing is designed to keep it there. The money disappears because that's what money does in the absence of a structure that holds it. The question is what kind of structure you're running, and whether it was chosen or inherited by default. Most people are running inherited defaults. Spending habits formed in their 20s or earlier. Patterns absorbed from households they grew up in. Behaviors that were never examined because they felt normal. And normal does not mean intentional. Normal means common. And common patterns produce common results. The common result is a month that always ends the same way. Here's what this looks like when the structure changes. Not dramatic transformation, not sudden wealth, just a different relationship to what's in the account. A quiet shift in what feels normal. Month 1 is uncomfortable. Month 2 is less uncomfortable. By month 4, the reduced spending baseline starts to feel like the baseline. The pressure eases, the checking and rechecking slows down. The end of the month stops carrying that particular kind of dread. And something else happens. The money that moved first, before the expenses, before the decisions, before the week 3 drain, starts to accumulate. Slowly. Without drama, without a major lifestyle change, just because it was removed from the pool that everything else was draining from. That accumulation is not exciting at first. It doesn't feel like progress immediately, but it is the beginning of a different kind of financial life, not because of the amount, because of the structure, because the sequence changed. Now there's one more thing worth understanding here. The reason this pattern is so persistent, the reason so many people who earn reasonable incomes still experience the disappearing money cycle is not that they're doing something wrong. It's that they're solving the wrong problem. They're solving for income, more hours, a raise, a second stream, something to increase the money coming in. And income matters. Of course it does, but income without structure produces the same result at a higher level. Bigger numbers, same disappearance, more confusion about where it all went. The real variable is not how much arrives. The real variable is what the system does with it the moment it arrives. And that variable is entirely within reach. It doesn't require more hours. It doesn't require a promotion. It doesn't require a market shift or a lucky break or a different set of circumstances. It requires a different sequence. And the difference between people whose money stays and people whose money disappears is almost always structural, not motivational, not ethical, not a matter of intelligence or responsibility or how much they care. Structural. The people whose money accumulates over time, without drama, without extreme sacrifice, are usually running a structure that captures money before the expenses can reach it. Not always consciously, not always deliberately designed, sometimes absorbed from a parent who did it that way, or from an environment that made it the default, but structural, not personal. This is worth sitting with, because if the pattern is structural, the solution is also structural, and structural changes are more durable than behavioral ones. A structure doesn't need to be motivated every day. It doesn't need to be reminded. It runs whether you're paying attention or not. That's the point. You don't have to think about it when you're tired. You don't have to enforce it when something unexpected happens. The sequence is the structure, and the structure runs. The goal is not to earn enough that the disappearing money stops mattering. The goal is to change what the money does the moment it arrives. Because at every income level, the same pattern exists. And at every income level, the same structural shift is available. This is not about becoming someone different, not about developing new habits over 3 months, not about reaching a certain income threshold before it becomes possible. It's available now with the current income, in the current month. The structure doesn't require a minimum amount. It requires a decision about sequence. And that decision changes what the next month looks like, and the month after that. Not because motivation kicked in, not because discipline held, because the sequence changed, and the sequence runs automatically once it's set. That's the pattern. That's what's actually happening every month. Not a mystery, not a failure of character, not a temporary problem that a raise will solve. A structure running on default, and a different structure available, simple, unsexy, and far more reliable than anything that depends on willpower or intention in the moment. This is not about earning more. It's about what the money does the second it arrives. That second is where everything is decided, not the end of the month, not the moment of purchase, the first moment, the sequence. That's where the month is won or lost before it even begins.